In December of 2002, our hearts were broken at the loss of one of our industry's biggest heroes. A graduate of Cal Poly, policy director at Californians Against Waste, president of Grassroots Recycling Network, and eventually a staff member in the California State Assembly, Rick Best was only 32 years old when his life was tragically ended in a car accident. As a paraplegic from birth, his inspiring passion, unwavering character, and tireless work in the early years of California's recycling industry inspired a legacy to all who knew Rick.
Rick, almost from the very beginning, inspired me, inspired the rest of the staff at Californians Against Waste, and all of the other environmental activists, because it was a challenge to be an environmental activist in those days under any circumstances. And Rick was doing the work that we were doing from a wheelchair. And he never let that wheelchair impact him. He never let it hold him back. Rick had every excuse in the world to kind of, maybe just take it easy on some things. And he worked harder than anyone else in the environmental community. I mean, he was at the office for hours. He made himself an expert at local recycling plants. He made himself an expert in composting, in food waste composting, in green waste composting. He made himself an expert in terms of the viability of using recycled content in plastic containers. And that wasn't, by accident. He wasn't successful because people felt sorry for him. He was successful because he worked hard. Tenacious, persevering, hardly they just scratched the surface, because this was a guy who overcame so much, but he never talked about what he was overcoming. He just did it.
I admired Rick from the first day we met, because what was clear to me anyway, in that first experience and then every experience after that with Rick, is his fundamental integrity, decency, intelligence about the subject matter, and more than anything, a deep and abiding personal commitment to making California a better place to live. He was admired in the Capitol for his fundamental integrity. You didn't wonder whether he added something or subtracted something or multiplied something or divided something. What you knew was you were getting absolutely the straightforward advocacy. It was advocacy because it was for an outcome. He had a value system and a personal belief system that translated well into legislative work and public policy making. A lot of people engage in what are called political truths, and that is the truth, but not the whole truth. And one of the things that was particularly admirable in Rick was that you got the whole truth, and then you could make up your mind where you wanted to go. He was an advocate for one outcome versus the other, but he gave you the whole truth with which to deal. I just admired the heck out of Rick, loved him deeply. The staff, to a person, thought Rick was one of the best people we had.
CAW, as a group activity, all went backpacking, and there were two routes to get to the coast, and they decided to take the more adventurous routes, including Rick. So for a portion of it, everybody was in good spirits, and they carried his chair over the most difficult parts of the trail. But when we got to the end of the beach, we played Frisbee. And that was one of our great bonds, Rick and I. Things like companionship, just wanting friends to hang out with, and people who wanted to hang out in his company became a little bit more of a challenge for him than others. But also, I think because of that, his friendship had a richness that we could all learn from. Not just a great legislative advocate, but I believe that Rick Best should be known and celebrated as a well-rounded and socially engaged person on all fronts.
We sometimes joke about the difference between, having a belief and being able to prove the belief. Rick was able to prove that what he was doing was the correct answer. For me, his legacy was his knowledge that he could talk about any number of topics around the recycling world and talk with knowledge as well as passion.
The Rick Best Environmental Advocacy Award honors lifetime environmental stewardship achievements and recognizes individuals who effectively advocate for Earth's natural systems. The award is for achievements that go beyond reuse, recycling, and composting to encompass air and water quality, resource protection, and climate action.